may not need this podcast, but I promise you're in the right place. I'm your host, Ben McDougal, with my AI companion and co-host, BenBot. Each week, we're live in the Pour Over Publishing studio to chat with remarkable students, entrepreneurs, intrapreneurs, and community builders. Together, we have fun exploring the frontiers of entrepreneurship and technology in Iowa and beyond. If you're a curious leader thirsty enough to make a ruckus, welcome to a friendly jolt brewed to keep you building. Enjoy! One of the key questions of our lives is how to spend time. My name is Ben McDougal, and welcome to Season 2 of You Don't Need This podcast. As we did last season, it was definitely less prepared and perhaps more of an experiment at the time. I did a caffeinated manifesto. So, episode 1 of this creative season is fun to reflect on and was by no means scripted. If I recall, I might have written down a little something to, have some sort of direction. But I thought it would be interesting to once again start season 2 with a similar energized conversation with you, the listener, about what to expect when you spend your time enjoying this podcast. There is something about interacting with people you respect. The perpetual learning of working alongside people, watching folks and seeing how they are enjoying, exploring, executing within the entrepreneurial lifestyle. And that's what this podcast is all about. If you're a student, an intrapreneur at a large company, an entrepreneur building something you care about, maybe it's a side hustle, keeping the energies nourished in different ways. Perhaps you're an entrepreneurial ecosystem builder, using the startup community to activate opportunities and through the art of connection, being able to further evolve the entrepreneurial environment and also the economic environment overall. When I think about season 1, I thought it would be fun to reflect on that just quick. Most of our episodes are around 30 to 40 minutes, and my assumption is this will be slightly shorter. But it'd be interesting just to rattle through a couple of memories when I think back to the 55 episodes that made up season 1. There's something special about a new studio, and so I'm going to introduce the cool collaboration that we have as we are now recording in a whole new environment. I have to shout out the Wizard of Oz, and so maybe we'll do a little of acknowledgements toward the time when it might be a good opportunity to do one of our classic commercials that aren't commercials. And it might be fun to use that break to rewind. Russ and I were in this studio unboxing and having fun setting up this brand new podcasting environment. And so we recorded a little bit about what this collaboration means and how it might impact the opportunities for our featured guests and your experience listening to this weekly podcast. And then I've got a little fun surprise for you. As you might have heard as an Easter egg at the very end of episode 55, which was recorded in Minneapolis. It was a season finale. We introduced the collector hardback edition to You Don't Need This book. And we heard the voice of BenBot for the first time. And so Jim Morgan and I had a great time in the wild, which are these episodes that are outside of the studio and recorded in the wild. And so, that's probably a good segue. When I think about some of those in the wild moments, I actually thought we would do a lot more of them. But perhaps selfishly, they're just such a different quality that I found myself wanting to bring people into the studio. And, we recorded one in Wisconsin. We recorded actually 3 in Wisconsin. One was at the launch of 1 Million Cups in Madison and over in Milwaukee on the same Wednesday. The other one was months later up in Stevens Point. I was up there doing You Don't Need This keynote which is a neat interaction with students, inviting folks to build without permission on the timeline of now. And so we also parlayed my time in that environment and was able to record 2 separate episodes with 4 total featured guests. And then that last one up in Minnesota, while we were there for 1 Million Cups Eden Prairie, and also the Entrepreneurs Organization's annual summit. They do a rally up there. And so that was in the wild, and I think that will remain a part of the experience with You Don't Need This podcast. But we have such a beautiful environment that has inspired views, the one-on-one interaction, right? IRL, in real life. I can see and touch and feel these people that are across from me, diving deep, but yet tackling a variety of, different topics. And so we kicked things off with Debbie Durham and Anna Lensing. We jammed. Episode 3 was with John Woodard. Siobhan, I think back when we had Annika, this 17-year-old, super well-articulated leader in episode 17 called Schoolhouse Rock. If you're listening, you can open up another tab and pop over to youdon'tneedthispodcast.com. This is a reminder, this is the home base, right? The primary, most rich experience where you can not only listen to episodes individually, but see the different featured guests, take a look at the show notes, and interact with all of these different timeless episodes. Boy, when I think about timeless, Aunt Julie was episode 47. She's since retired after over 30 years at IBM. We did another In the Wild episode at the Black and Brown Business Summit. That was neat to talk with the pitch winners of that event, AC and Navarre they're actually from Miami. Russ, you'll hear about this later, but episode 31, what is school for? Oh, if you want a nerdy episode, jump back to episode 6, a computer visionary with Brad Dwyer. Ooh, we talked about multimodality and how AI wraps into this really accelerated environment of utilizing computer vision to really optimize the way humans interact with technology. Jay Byers was in the house. He's since transitioned into his new role with Simpson College. But then there's also folks on the Web3 front. Boy, we enjoyed the nerdery. Talking about cryptographic cowboy, right? Episode 8 with Kyle Tutt. Or I think about Will was in the house. We talked about the history of the startup community in Des Moines. Drams of History, episode 14 with Tej Dewan. Tom Swartwood, he shed tears as we discussed his time in education. We actually, wove in quite a bit of fashion last season. Russell Karim was in the house talking about sustainable swagger. Episode 11 was really cool. Scotty Russell also out on that Web3 front with episode 44. Alex Myers, a certified futurist, followed him at episode 45. As you can tell, there's so much interesting angles all through the lens of this entrepreneurial lifestyle. And so my caffeinated manifesto, I think in season 1 was very hopeful, not a whole lot of clarity. Right now, we know what is going on here. We've got a momentum boosted train that is really connecting dots and accelerating our listeners. And so whether it's, small business or Joe Murphy, a big business, episode 40, talking about the largest companies and how they interact with intrapreneurship. More on the fashion front with episode 24. Andre Wright was in Des Moines, and so we brought him in the studio. Cassie Edgar, we had some very valuable conversations on the legal front. And so with her, we were looking at different trademarks and different types of patent work. We had 3 different patent attorneys in the studio. Tim Zarley was here, which is what a neat friend and ally for some of my own quests. And Sean Solberg, was also here from Frederickson, which is a regional law firm. And so many knowledge grenades were thrown back and forth. I think back when Curdy was in the studio, we talked about accelerators and her work with Techstars, our collaboration through Techstars, Startup Weekend. We actually, talked with people who had gone through that and led this type of hackathon that invites folks to build together in a condensed format. Boy, I'm just looking through YouDon'tNeedThisPodcast.com and enjoying all the memories. Tone, the move maker, had some awesome stories, and the way he's built his brand. I'm actually wearing his hoodie with a special mantra of mine. You've heard it on this podcast, and if you have a copy of my book, it's probably on the front cover. You can have so much optimism when you think about this idea of may the best of your todays be the worst of your tomorrows. It's something that I first heard on a Jay-Z track, and Forever Young is the song. If you listen to it, you'll get a little smile knowing that's how it really resonated with me. It lingers in other songs as well, but this is something that I think resonates and ruminates within this podcast. My hope is that it's not only informative, but entertaining. I'm like Ryan Seacrest, my friends. We can have fun with this. I think there's so much value and almost undervalued fun, right? If we only live once, why waste time doing something that you don't enjoy? Maybe some form of a grind is required to get to points of where you want to be. Oh, but there's so much value. It's just one of life's greatest gifts to build into the directions that you care about. And so when I think about this podcast, I'll be honest with you, there was a time where I felt called to monetize this. There's huge value. There's listeners, there's metrics, there's something that could still be an interesting connection with a community partner that understands the opportunity of accelerating others without needing to be the sign, but instead almost a donation of appreciation and being the soil that allows more opportunities to connect through this art. And so there was a moment in season 1 where I was creating a one-pager, and admittedly, I probably should have talked to more ecosystem allies, but I started to feel like I was trying to sell the value, like it wasn't clear, or I wasn't able to articulate what we were doing in these remarkable, timeless, very valuable relics of episodes, each and every one, and how many people were woven into the mix. And so I stepped away from it, and who knows what the future holds, right? But it was a good lesson. The timeliness of a Seth Godin Akimbo episode, which is his podcast, over 100 episodes, and it's something I listen to most often. He reminded us that sometimes podcasting is not about promotion or advertising or even making money. Yes, it might be a piece of a larger puzzle. And in my case, you've got You Don't Need This Book, and I do speaking engagements, and I'm working, inside of the Kauffman Foundation with 1 Million Cups. My own entrepreneurial ventures, of course, are a part of that pie chart. But perhaps podcasting is more for yourself. Perhaps it's something that connects you with others that you highly respect and creates a moment of impact between 2-3 people that is special, that can live for beyond the moment. And I found a lot of peace in that. My hope is that freedom, that privilege to spend time with you is not being passed or wasted. This is time that is being dedicated to an art that is communicated, articulated, thoughtful, diverse, meaningful, and valuable to you and your entire trust channel. Feel free to share this. You know it's part of the game, but go ahead and follow it over on Apple Podcasts or Spotify or Amazon or wherever you listen to podcasts. The 5-star rating is also part of the game, and it feels so like slimy to suggest that you click that 5-star, but it is so easy. And it also really helps to connect other people that might be outside of our engaged network to what we're doing through this experience. And so thank you in advance for your willingness to spend some time together. I'm so thankful for the opportunity to share my heart. The book I wrote every week into roastedreflections.com for over 3 years, and this is an extension of my interest in accelerating others. This creates an unmatched energy and a deep level of understanding. And so the invitation is always open. Pop over to benmcdougal.com, hit the connect page. I live on the internet. I'm easy to find. Let's talk. I'd love to learn more about what you're building. And perhaps there's an opportunity to bring you into this studio and create another relic within this exciting season 2 of You Don't Need This podcast. All right, now for a couple of quick acknowledgements. First and foremost, I gotta share out my Wizard of Oz, the guy behind the knobs. Now, I actually have some new knobs that we're gonna play with. Now, hopefully it doesn't create too much of this and more of this, but there's gonna be some fun woven into the technology we use. And, you know, Israel Tutson is over in Hollywood. He's a filmmaker, an audio engineer. He was on the Jimmy Kimmel show tickling the piano. And so when you hear some of the soundtracks behind this show, know that I'm so thankful to the opportunity of working alongside Israel, who makes us sound great, who brings everything together. We don't edit. This is all like one take type effort, but he really does connect the dots and delivers something that is ultra quality. And so Israel, my man, thank you for composing such beautiful art in your own ways and your collaboration within You Don't Need This podcast. You know, another one, before we go to break, I want to share a quick shout out to Russ here at the Waukee Apex. Waukee Apex, as you will hear during the break, is a remarkable program. It's within a local school district, and it is the definition of blurring the lines between our classrooms and community. If you are an educator, if you are a leader who is not tenured and tired, I hope that you enjoy this short break to further explore how this collaboration brought such a unique connection to life. Russ, we did it, bud.
Hey, this was a long time in the making.
Man, what an achievement. We just did a little unboxing today.
Absolutely.
Talk about the origin of how are we standing here right now?
Boy, I know. This is a culmination, it feels like. It's been a while. I mean, I was came downtown and recorded an episode last August, sounds like.
Season 1, You Don't Need This podcast, one of my actually favorite episodes, titled, What is School For? Mm-hmm. You were the featured guest, and we jammed.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it was great. And if I remember right, from there, we started talking about how to potentially move things out west here to the Wilk and Waukee, see if we can get student involvement, student engagement. And from there, it was really just a Christmas list of goodies of what are we looking for, and got all this stuff. And
I think the list was on point.
Mm-hmm.
The setup was done. And eventually I'll get good enough with this board where I'll actually have that as a sound effect, you know?
Yep.
My little bleep, bloop, blops.
Yep.
So we got the mixer set up. We opened up the mics. We've got room for 3.
Mm-hmm.
We've got some arms to make it really natural. We've got a really interesting pod with an inspired view. Mm-hmm. Still some knobs to turn, mm-hmm. but, you know, along with having a really like inspired space for You Don't Need This podcast and some of the art that the community creates, I think it's always going to be neat to know that we have a new way of interacting with students and not just talking about content creation in this way, but actually being able to jump in studio, learn how a mix amp works, learn how to, articulate your thoughts with the spoken word, and how to record and tell stories and editing, all the things that go into this. We now have, how about we go upstairs type access.
That's I love it. That's a great way to put it. You're really making me think about so much of what our program is all about and how, the program's been around for 10 years now. And so what a good moment to kind of kick off better storytelling about what we do. I mean, I'm just like the ideas for our student associates utilizing this space and the tools are just like bouncing around in my head. I'm thinking about interviewing each other. What have you been up to this week? Bring in a business partner when a project is finished and talking about, that process, that kind of thing. Just all the different ways that we can share that pre-professional work that goes on here. So,
Wow.
Yeah.
Well, this was unscripted, unplanned, and unboxed. Russ, thank you for your generous leadership, both with students, with this creative initiative. And I'm excited about, this will add some timeliness to it, which I generally like to speak in more timeless ways. But season 2 of You Don't Need This Podcast is going to be a part of what's next after 55 episodes, which was recorded in 3 months and then released weekly starting last fall, 2023. And now we're just starting to wrap things up. We're releasing video to keep momentum as we get into this studio and begin recording fresh relics for a whole nother round of really interesting interactions. So thank you again, Russ.
Welcome. There it is. Love working with you, Ben.
Keep building, my friends. And welcome back to my second Caffeinated Manifesto. Now, I don't know if you get to do these at the beginning of every season. Seth Godin records his podcast alone every episode. And so while I'm thankful for so many different featured guests that are sharing their experiences within the entrepreneurial lifestyle, this is something that I'm hoping you enjoy. I know that it's going to be fun to look back on for me and further reflect on the way I'm spending time. And so I hope you've enjoyed so far. 55 episodes. Fun fact, some of you know this, but those were recorded in just 3 months. That is a lot of conversations. And I think this season might have a little less of a condensed timeline, but know that we're also having more fun with video. We already have activated video in a variety of ways for some of the episodes in season 1, and we'll continue to record video in every single episode with a goal of having more, if not all, of the episodes available on YouTube and, of course, embedded on the show pages over on youdon'tneedthispodcast.com. During the break, I was signing one of these books. These collector hardback editions are such a relic. And the first 100 get individual numbers. And as you heard in episode 55, just have all sorts of compelling finishes. But I was looking back at some of the other episodes. I mean, Brandon Hart talked about additive manufacturing. I needed a cooler term, like a professional vocabulary word for 3D printing. And so we talked about building like ideas into reality with his prototyping expertise, but recognizing that additive manufacturing is so much more than creating little trinkets. Thinking about manufacturing, we also spoke with Ethan Davidson, one of my day ones, one of my co-founders, one of my best friends. Speaking of best friends, what up, Sinclair? That was one of the funniest episodes. Ben and I have been building together so long. It was like, what do you want to talk about? And so, boy, what was that? Episode like 21? Yeah, Pinball Wizards. That one was awesome. Ryan Garrity, 14ers. Episode 18 with Jeff Reed. The only episode I wore sunglasses for the entire episode, but we talked about mountain climbing and thoughts of the climb, and I think we're going to talk a little bit more about that in season 2. We already have featured guests lined up to join me in studio. Boy, there were more people that came together. I think of BTA, Brandon T. Adams. Actually, thinking about the video, this was one of the connections that was the first video that we saw from season 1. as some of our filmmakers and videographers, folks who know how to edit video understand, it's hard might be the wrong word, but it's definitely time consuming. And so one of the, I guess, barriers, of course, was to release audio and make sure that that was high quality, knowing that the video was shot and you couldn't use it if you didn't take it. And so with that multimedia in place, there were opportunities to potentially work with students in like a work program, work-based learning type experience. I looked at hiring it out. I knew I could do it. I mean, you've seen what I do in the video realm, but it also felt like such a big lift until I found a little AI that would basically automatically slice the video based off whose mic was speaking. And so while it still took alignment and fitting in the different components of the video that you can see on the different episodes over on YouTube, it really like unlocked the capabilities of us continuing to add video into these episodes. And so I hope you enjoy those. It really adds like that extra layer. And so when you're watching Elizabeth Tweedell in episode 27, or maybe it's a Sachin with Let's Get Phygital, episode 28. Ooh, Brian C. Rowdy. You know, he's talking about the end, this exit ramp, how to look at mergers and acquisitions. Man, we talked about so many interesting things in season 1. I'm just really... I'm like very confident that season 2 is going to be just as remarkable. You know, one of the things that has just added like a hint of weird, a hint of fun is my AI companion and friendly co-host in the studio, BenBot. And so throughout season 1, we would prompt BenBot really impromptu and see how the responses from this chat UX, from this AI that was trained on all of my writings, would respond based off the topics of conversation and let the featured guest and I riff on its responses. And so as BenBot really added a neat layer into our interactions, it felt like it was unfair for me just to read the response. And so you may have heard it in season 1 finale. It was episode 55. But my friends, BenBot has been given
a voice. And so, welcome to season 2 of You Don't Need This podcast. I am BenBot, and I would like to invite you to a friendly giveaway. Digital is physical plus digital, and Ben is willing to send you a phygital shirt, an electronic clothing item, for the first listener who shares You Don't Need This podcast.com, writes a 5-star review on either Apple Podcasts or Spotify, and be sure to let Ben know by connecting with him through benmcdougal.com.
Now, most of the episodes will not have BenBot responding at such length, and who knows, the tone of his voice might evolve throughout season 2. But it's so fun to be able to have BenBot articulate its understandings through the vocal aspects of this podcast. You know, this has been a fun reflection. I was thinking about writing it up and really having a script so I could just nail this thing, but I didn't. I, of course, wanted to be thoughtful and jammed on a couple of bullet points, but this is my heart. This is now. This is everything I have delivered in a way that I hope you appreciate, that I hope you find value in, that I hope you enjoy, that I hope you have fun with, that I hope makes you laugh, that I hope makes you think, that I hope makes you like want to keep building, my friends. It's hard to know exactly what season 2 is going to be, but I promise it's going to be remarkable. Thank you for the pleasure, the gift, the privilege of your time. And together, people like us do things like this. I got to shout out Seth Godin, my favorite thinker, my favorite author. He's got the blurb on the back of my book, jam-packed with hard-earned tips, tactics, and approaches for entrepreneurs of all stripes. My friends, season 2 is here. This is next. I hope you enjoy now. May the best of your todays be the worst of your tomorrows. Keep building. And lastly, good, better, best. Never let it rest. May your good be better and your better be best. Thanks for tuning in to another episode of You Don't Need This Podcast. We hope you enjoyed this weekly dose of innovative energy. Thanks to all who make this show possible. Be sure to smash that subscribe button, and you know I'd love to learn more about what you're building. Hit me up over at benmcdougal.com, and until next time, may the best of your todays be the worst of your tomorrows. Keep building.
The good people will prevail. The innovators will prevail. One, we have no choice, but two, we have a long history of taking and making things better. Flawed. We've made a lot of mistakes, but I remain optimistic. I remain optimistic every single day that we will make the world a better place. And my motivation and in this next phase of my life is to contribute in some way to making the world a better place, so that at the end of the day, I can honestly say that I had enough. Sorry.
Gratitude emerges as you step away and appreciate the way that you've made an impact. And Tom, the way you've nudged the world, you don't need told this, but know that you have made the world a better place. And I know that you will continue to make a ruckus.